wanderers, beholders of curiosities or otherwise ghoulish fiends, take heed, and consider this a prelude, a warning, perhaps, before you choose to inquire thus further, as we venture into the world of horror, a world that is not as far or as different from ours as we like to think, a world that might never be understood and perhaps shouldn't be. Come and uncover with me tales of dread, chronicles of the uncanny, explorations into the strange and scary, and for all the things that go bump in the night. I am Ravenna Grim, and this is Behind the Button Eye.
Today, we venture into the Netherworld to summon the bioexorcist Ghost with the Most himself. Beetlejuice centers around the lovely couple Adam and Barbara Maitland, who, unfortunately for them, are newly dead after a car accident. The bad news continues for the Maitlands as they are now ghosts who are unable to leave their house. As they try getting used to their new way of existence, their troubles amp up when the Dietz family moves in. The Maitlands want to scare the Dietzes away, but are rather unsuccessful, which attracts the attention of a certain ghost, Beetlejuice. Although Barbara and Adam consider enlisting his help at first, they quickly realize that this spirit is far more trouble than good, leading to a bunch of problems and misadventures for not only the Maitlands, but the Dietzes as well. To put it simply, Beetlejuice is a story with a lot of heart, despite all the dead people. With a budget around $15 million, the movie was considered a commercial success, grossing around $84 million worldwide. The accolades don't stop there. It won the Academy Award for Best Makeup and went on to spawn an animated television show, a 2018 stage musical that later went on to premiere on Broadway in 2019, and even a sequel to the original film, which came out 36 years later. Beetlejuice is a rather beloved movie and has definitely stood the test of time. I think there's no better testament to that than looking at the success of its sequel, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. So far, it has amassed around $373 million at the global box office, and is now Tim Burton's biggest global box office hit in over a decade. Not to mention that other films, such as the 1989 Batman movie and Nightmare Before Christmas, might have never been made without Beetlejuice. People can't get enough of the Ghost with the Most, but a lot went into the 1988 movie before it was even close to being on the big screen. In fact, the Beetlejuice we know and love today could have looked incredibly different. In the 1980s, Michael McDowell was known for being a horror novelist, especially in regards to his work surrounding Southern Gothic horror. At this time, Stephen King referred to him as being, quote, the finest writer of paperback originals in America today, which is no small feat in itself. Around the mid-1980s, McDowell had a desire to break into the movie business, and he specifically wanted to write his own supernatural script. He was at least partly inspired by some of the supernatural-themed movies of the time that also happened to be successful, like Poltergeist and Ghostbusters. He started collaborating on ideas for a script with his partner, Lawrence Senelik, in their home in Medford, Massachusetts. Apparently, they struck inspiration from some of the neighborhood families that they found to be annoying. The idea was simple yet genius. Senelik said to McDowell, "What would be the situation if you had good ghosts? And it's the people who moved into the house who were awful." With that intriguing proposition, McDowell thought of a professional bioexorcist who scares off intolerable residents. Larry Wilson, producer and screenwriter, met McDowell around the mid-1980s in Los Angeles. Wilson wanted to return to screenwriting, which led him to start working with McDowell on the script of what would be Beetlejuice. The earlier drafts of Beetlejuice looked quite different from what the story ultimately ended up being. Originally, the movie was going to be more of a typical horror movie, specifically by being more gruesome and shocking. For starters, the Maitlands' death was depicted more graphically. The Maitlands were supposed to be knocked off the road by a truck of angry hunters. The early drafts also wanted to have Barbara's arm crushed by a piece of wood. In a way, this was referenced in the movie when Barbara and Adam come back to their house after the accident. Barbara is seen kind of holding her arm, and Adam asks how her arm is, but she says it feels frozen. Another difference was that Lydia originally had a younger sister named Kathy, who was supposed to be a foil to Lydia's character. Lydia was also going to die in a fire and then live as a ghost with the Maitlands around the end of the movie. I think the biggest differences, though, would lie with the character Beetlejuice himself. Beetlejuice was originally written as a winged demon that would typically manifest as, quote, a Middle Eastern man. He was going to be far more murderous, wanting to kill the Dietz family, and instead of marrying Lydia, wanting to SA her. Thank God this was not the final draft, because holy shit, this would have been a completely different movie. McDowell and Wilson dropped the script off with an executive at Universal, who apparently called Wilson a few days later. According to Wilson, the executive said something along these lines: "What are you doing with your career? This piece of weirdness, this is what you're going to go out into the world with? You're developing into a very good executive. You've got great taste in material. Why are you going to squander all that for this piece of shit?" Sometime afterwards, Wilson asked Marjorie Lewis, a young development executive at the Giffen Film Company, to read the Beetlejuice script. Wilson previously knew Lewis since she took some of his classes around early 1985 when he taught UCLA extension courses. This turned out to be a monumentally great decision. Lewis was quotedly blown away by the script. She loved the script enough that she passed it on to Eric Eisner, Geffen Film Company president, and pleaded with him to buy it. Evidently, she even threatened to quit if he didn't. Whatever she said must have worked, because Lewis said that the film company purchased the rights to the script the same week. About 2 years after Tim Burton's Pee-wee's Big Adventure debuted, he was getting frustrated with the scripts being offered to him, saying that they were bad comedies or that they were too conventional. Pee-wee's Big Adventure's production was under Warner Brothers, which was the Giffen Film Division's parent company. When Burton came across the script for Beetlejuice, it was like fate. The script for Beetlejuice was completely anti all that. It had no real story. It didn't make any sense. It was more like a stream of consciousness. He told the Rolling Stone at the time of the release of the movie, "The things that interest me the most are the things that potentially won't work. On Beetlejuice, I could tell every day what was going to work and what wasn't. And that was very invigorating. Especially when you're doing something this extreme. A lot of people have ragged on the story of Beetlejuice, but when I read it, I thought, wow, this is sort of interesting. It's very random. It doesn't follow what I would consider the Spielberg story structure. I guess I have to watch it more because I'm intrigued by things that are perverse. Like, I was intrigued that there was no story." To help clean up the script, Warren Scarron, a screenwriter, was hired. Scarron consulted with McDowell during the process of rewriting. During rewrites, the two Dietz children were combined into one, Lydia. Also, Lydia was made into a more prominent part of the story. More humor and jokes were added, making the script more of a comedic horror. Scarron also defined what Beetlejuice's powers would be and made him more of a jokester. Despite all the changes, a nice thing to note, though, was that McDowell's partner, Senlick, saw McDowell's mark all over the final cut. In early 1987, the movie was filmed in East Corinth, Vermont, and on a soundstage in Los Angeles. Before filming began, of course, actors had to be chosen. Now, who was to play the title character? Originally, Burton suggested Sammy Davis Jr., but the studio declined. Executive David Giffen then suggested Michael Keaton. At first, Keaton turned the role down, partly because he wanted to spend more time at home and wasn't particularly looking for work. Also, Keaton had a little bit of trouble understanding the movie and character, but according to Rolling Stone, he, quote, had a breakthrough when Burton mentioned that Beetlejuice existed across time and space. Burton also encouraged the actors to improvise, which Keaton was a big fan of. "You show up on the set and just go fucking nuts," Keaton said in an interview with Rolling Stone. "It was rave acting. You rage for 12 or 14 hours, then you go home tired and beat and exhausted. It was pretty damn cathartic." I think the funniest thing I found of Burton putting his foot down and sticking to his guns was when it came to naming the movie. During pre-production, Warner Brothers reportedly was concerned about the title and suggested that the movie be called House Ghost. How original. Allegedly, Burton made a joke about how the movie should be called Scared Sheetless. And when studio execs responded positively to that idea, Burton said that the movie title will stay as Beetlejuice. It should come as no surprise that Burton had ideas of what the characters should look like, especially when it came to the people of the afterlife. Burton wanted them to have pastel colors, which V. Neal, renowned makeup artist, said the colors were similar to Necco wafers. However, those colors were made brighter in order to show up better once on screen. Originally, when testing makeup on Keaton, it was based off of Burton's sketches. However, he reportedly kept looking too realistic and creepy. It got to the point where Burton eventually told Neal to do whatever she wanted to do. Neal said that she wanted to keep the commonality of having pastel colors that the other afterlife people have with Beetlejuice's makeup. Even though most people believe he's painted with like a white base, Neal has explained that it has more of a pastel yellow in it. To add a more cartoony look, she put big dark circles around his eyes. Neal also sent someone to a hobby store to get crushed foam and some moss, so he would, quote, look like he crawled out from underneath a rock. At the very opening of the film, a sample of Banana Boat, Deo, by Harry Belafonte sounds off as the instrumentals of Danny Elfman's main title for Beetlejuice takes over. Besides the iconic opening of the camera panning over the town until at the end revealing a model town, the music is what truly invites us into the world of Beetlejuice. It is wacky, unnerving, looming fun, and captivates the viewer before the first scene even begins. In fact, scenes shown to test screenings landed well with audiences when they added the film's score. Before that, the consensus was that the movie was, quote, too strange. Music plays an essential role in this movie. I don't think there's any way to overstate it. Simply put, Beetlejuice wouldn't be Beetlejuice without Harry Belafonte's music. And it's quite scary to think that it wasn't in the original plan. Songs such as Percy Sledge's When a Man Loves a Woman and the Ink Spot's If I Didn't Care were initially favored. Part of the credit for getting Belafonte's songs goes to Catherine O'Hara for having the idea of using calypso music. David Giffen was the one to call Belafonte and ask if they could use some of his music. I never had a request like that before. We talked briefly. I liked the idea of Beetlejuice. I liked him, and I agreed to do it. After the movie's release, Deo was played on top 40 radio stations. Deo and Shake, Shake, Shake Sonora are synonymous with Beetlejuice. It's an important puzzle piece that most at first wouldn't think would fit, but in fact completes a strange and unusual puzzle. Beetlejuice has a rather interesting and unique take on death. It plays on this idea of while life is complicated, death is harder, which is not really a common train of thought even to this day. It's even more of a focus in the musical adaptation, specifically in the song What I Know Now, with the line, "Life is short, but death is super long." As funny and obvious as that statement is on its surface, there is a sort of depressing undertone to it as well. Many believe or at least hope that death will be the end of one's problems, that the stress and negative aspects and problems of life will go away. But in the world of Beetlejuice, it's not that at all. The movie's view is that when you die, your problems aren't taken care of. We try to portray the afterlife as a cheap science fiction movie, not as clouds and a beautiful sky, but an IRS office. Throughout the movie, we see Barbara and Adam struggle to navigate the afterlife and how in many ways it's actually more confusing and less straightforward than life. Although, maybe not as direct as some of the other points and themes, the underbelly of the movie is about living your life. That while life is messy, it doesn't have to always be a bad type of messy. That life is multifaceted and it can suck and be great, even at the same time. Despite the movie being filled with all sorts of humor, part of its core is actually quite genuine, and to a point, even serious. Although death is joked about from start to finish, it may be surprising to some that they might have overlooked its more serious points about death, particularly with suicide. Yes, there's the "if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have had my little accident" scene, and the general system of workers in the afterlife. But there's some key moments that don't joke, even one in which is a blink and you miss it type of moment. In the movie, Lydia is feeling incredibly lonely, depressed, and lost, and plans to jump off the same bridge where Barbara and Adam had their car accident, so she can be a ghost too. When she tells Barbara and Adam this, they not only comfort her, but tell her that death doesn't make things any easier. The blink and you miss it scene, that arguably I favor even more than the conversation Barbara has with Lydia, is the one Lydia has with Beetlejuice. She tells him that she wants to go where the Maitlands are, to the afterlife. And for a split second, Beetlejuice breaks character. He seems actually taken aback and what appears genuinely asks, why? Before he snaps back to his sales pitch persona. Although Beetlejuice was trying to trick Lydia into saying his name 3 times to summon him into the real living world, he, unintentionally or not, keeps Lydia preoccupied and distracted long enough that Barbara and Adam come back. So, in a weird way, he had a sort of indirect hand in keeping Lydia alive. I think it's pretty obvious by now, but I adore this movie. This movie is weird, from start to finish, from the characters to the humor, the set designs, the stop motion and practical effects and makeup, to who could forget the sandworms on Saturn. This movie is downright wacky, and it is in full embrace of it. You're probably familiar with Lydia's quote, "Live people ignore the strange and unusual. I myself am strange and unusual." I, for one, have seen it plastered over tons of different mugs and clothes throughout the years. And it's not just a memorable quote that edgy alternative teenagers who most likely would live at Hot Topic if they could aspire to. In a lot of ways, it's the motto of the movie. From its inception and early drafts, rewrites, and at times endless criticisms of being quote-unquote too strange, all the way to its release on March 30th, 1988, to even people watching it all these years later. Like the title of this video states, this movie is a celebration of the strange and unusual. This movie is unabashedly itself, in every way imaginable. It's zany and absurd, and more than anything, it is strange and unusual. I honestly don't think you could really compare any other film, let alone any other media, to Beetlejuice. It's uniquely itself and loud and proud of it. Michael Keaton is quoted as saying, "From an art perspective, I don't know how you get better than Beetlejuice. If you consider the process of taking something from someone's mind and putting it on the screen, I think that movie is incomparable. When things are like that, they'll just last forever." For those who made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. You are awesome. Beetlejuice is one of my favorite movies, and while researching for this video, I already started getting more ideas for future Beetlejuice videos. Also, I feel like I have said Beetlejuice enough times that I think if the say it 3 times to summon rule was real, I would be permanently stuck with him for all eternity. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like or comment, and if you want to see more videos like this, I'd greatly appreciate it if you'd subscribe to this channel. Let me know your thoughts about the film Beetlejuice and what your favorite thing about Beetlejuice is. Also, please leave a comment if there's any film you would like me to cover. Thank you for venturing with me into the world of horror. Farewell and safe departures, my little ghouls.